What is the most spiteful thing an ex has done to you? My ex filed a bogus restraining order not allowing me to see my son who I was taking care of while she was at work. She filed that I was going to kill him and her and then take him overseas. The court accepted the order. 6 months later, she calls saying, "You need to start watching the baby again." I start watching my son again and then I ask her if my son could spend at least one night a week with me. I was retired from the police force due to an on-the-job injury and so I had the benefit of spending time with my son. She flat out refused. Long story short, after all the false allegations she stated about me, false kidnapping reports, having the police knock down my door and my son and I in shock, years of court proceedings, and even though the courts and state social worker found her to a scorned woman and a rampant liar, they awarded her full custody. It's been 5 years, 6 months, 7 days, 16 hours, 4 minutes and counting since I last saw or spoke with him. I cannot see my son, which I still pay $400 a month in child support, and he only lives 10 minutes away from me. This kind of story just breaks my heart, man. Feel for you. My ex set everything I had left at her house on fire. She bragged about it over the phone later. Even your GBA. Wait, my GBA? Yes. B. My GBA is sitting right next to me. You set your GBA on fire. I'm afraid to date anyone after reading this thread. I swear Reddit is going to give me serious trust issues. My ex-wife started freaking my best friend of 14 years as soon as we separated, but I allow the possibility that it happened before that. Not only did she crush my soul but took my best friend who I looked up to. He was also married. I hear they had a baby now and he is still married. Whatever. I hope they both die of shark AIDS. Shark AIDS. The worst kind of AIDS. Attempted suicide, or at least claimed to attempt suicide, multiple times purely to get my attention. The first time it happened I called an ambulance, only to have the police call me back 20 minutes later saying she was clearly making the whole thing up. Also regularly threatened to crash her car with both of us in it and to kill my family, and once tried to stab me with a kitchen knife. Once we broke up, she told all of our mutual friends that I was an abusive, cheating bastard, neither of which is even remotely true. By the time I realized what she was doing, most of them were already refusing to talk to me. Of that entire group, she manipulated all but 2 or 3 into hating my guts. Around 8 years ago, while still dating her, she tricked me into getting her pregnant, sabotaged the birth control, and as soon as she got pregnant cut all contact. I tried to remain civil with her, and I have been up to this day, but she quite clearly told me the only reason she started dating me in the first place is because she wanted a child, and I had never factored into her plans. When my daughter was born she didn't put me on the birth certificate and out the father as unknown. Took her to court multiple times but she denied paternity was mine and the courts could not force a DNA test. She eventually moved and completely disappeared off the radar. I have an 8-year-old daughter out there somewhere who I have only ever seen once. I think about her every day. Take comfort in the fact that your daughter will be an adult one day, and I'm sure she will find out the truth. This ain't overdude. My ex-girlfriend and I shared a bank account after living together for 2 years. I know the groundwork for a happy ending. Well, she was saying she had a job when she didn't and was lying about money while I was working every day. So I broke it off with her and moved out, then went to the bank to close our account. I was told both parties had to be there to close the account, but she wasn't coming around for a while. So I just took my name off the account and opened my own new one. Bank of America wouldn't screw me, right? Fast forward 3 months later, and I had a few grand saved up and doing well. She wanted to get back with me, even though she now had a boyfriend. I had no interest anymore. Well, I go out to get some Gatorade before Ultimate Frisbee and none of my cards are working. I call BOA and they tell me that there is fraudulent activity. Yet my ex had written $40,000 in fraudulent checks from our old account. The bank saw that I used to be on that account and drained it completely to cover the $40K. I am not a guy that has credit cards, so this was my only source of money. Period. I was flat broke and it sucked. I took her to court but she doesn't work, so I hope one day to get a few dollars of that back. My ex wrote $40K in fraudulent checks from an account we used to have together and the bank took all my money too. falsely accused of domestic violence and had every journal and photo of my childhood taken from me. Also every piece of physical belongings that I had at the time. It all came out in the wash on the domestic violence thing. The judge started to see it was all a hoax, but dang, the most trying 6 months of my life. Me and the lady split a few months ago. Out of nowhere I get a random text from her, which happens to be a picture of her hand grasping a penis of impressive stature. She began to explain how thankful she was I broke up with her so she could find such a penis. I wanted to be mad, but couldn't. Just kind of stared at the picture for a while thinking good for her. Doesn't sound like she was over you. My buddy's ex cheated on him with our roommate, then turned into a super vindictive bee when he found out. The day she moved out, she filed a restraining order against him, claiming that he was prone to violent outbursts and a danger to himself and others, which is the exact opposite of this guy. Most level-headed guy I know, who got cheated on with one of his best friends. Then with her shiny new restraining order she weasels her way onto the volunteer staff at the anime convention he attends each year. A week before, got his admission revoked and he couldn't get a court date fast enough to call her bulls before the con. Once he did get one, the judge basically told her to get the frick out with that bulls. He brought a shitstorm of evidence. That kind of crap should have come with a huge fine, like, say, the fine for all the judge's time she wasted, as well as emotional damages, and slander libel, possibly lying under oath. Shouldn't frick with the law, emo, or you deserve to get fricked back. One of my sister's exes did a similar thing, but in a much more psychotic fashion. She found a wet shopping bag on her doorstep containing her drowned cat. That's considered animal abuse. Report it. My ex is a physician and an addict, so she can't manipulate with the best of them. When we decided to split, it was quite clear who was in the wrong, and we agreed that the debt she had accumulated through her multiple tours in rehab, well north of $100,000, would stay with her. We didn't have any children, or any joint property to cause any fits over, so the divorce seemed pretty straightforward. She got a lawyer to help push it through, and I was going to try to not get one of my own to save costs. Obvious mistake. I was supposed to go to her attorney's office to sign some paperwork, but was having trouble reaching someone at the office to make a time to stop by. Her lawyer emailed her that day saying that he hadn't heard from me yet, and she forwarded this email to me, without realizing that she was forwarding me the entire email chain that she had with her counsel. Oops. In the email, she very clearly stated that she wanted to slap me with the rehab debt, stating that I was complicit in her drug use. Totally false. Needless to say, I went pretty crazy, and immediately hired the most cutthroat lawyer I could find in the area. My lawyer was awesome, and cheap, and he routinely put her in her proper place. My lawyer was awesome, and cheap. Man, I really need to get in contact with this soul guy. This wasn't spite directed at me, but it was pretty narcissistic and ridiculous. My ex broke up with me and took our jointly owned car to another state, proceeded to lose a series of jobs and fail to help pay any of our joint debt. The agreement had been that he would pay it all, as I was a poor grad student and he was supposedly walking into a 6-figure salary. I had to track down his mom to get my name off of his car loan as he wouldn't answer my emails about it. I had to pay the remaining joint debt off myself slowly to preserve my credit. $16K. Then he had the gall to come to Reddit and post an AMA about how he purposefully left his high-paying job to follow his dream and become a penniless writer, despite Reddit pretty much immediately calling him out for receiving unemployment benefits, which you don't get if you leave your job. He brought up our relationship in the AMA and mentioned how he had paid all of our joint debt himself when he left since he could afford it and I was just a student. After all the time and saving it took me to get rid of that debt myself, that was pretty shitty to read. Pretty much the whole AMA was very self-congratulatory like that. A lot of people bought into it and stroked his ego, and it made me realize just how fraught with single-sided bulls that subreddit might be. Nowhere near yours. I had an ex spread the rumor around my small hometown that I had physically abused her through our relationship. I couldn't figure it out at first, but all of my platonic girlfriends suddenly started hating and avoiding me when I would visit. When I called her out on it at a party, she just started laughing and said, "Oh yeah, I was just mad at you and told people that." Isn't that funny? All I could do was shake my head and say, "No, B. That's not funny at all. I still have to correct people to this day, 2.5 years later. She gave me genital warts after she cheated on me with just a friend. Oh baby you got what I need. 3 years after I broke up with my ex, she found out who my new girlfriend is, somehow got her phone number, bought a disposable phone and texted the new girlfriend that I was cheating on her, used a different name and using her previous knowledge of a birthmark location and what I like to do in bed to effectively throw new girlfriend into rage, and she didn't believe me due to the contents of the message. Forever alone. My first serious live-in girlfriend cheated on me with several of her past partners. I could never catch her doing it, but for a variety of reasons I knew. I was nuts about her though, and she lied like a politician. Finally, my best friend's older brother nailed her, on purpose, to prove it. Yeah, thanks for that, I guess. I packed up my crap and left, peacefully, but I had forgotten to grab my art portfolio from behind the couch. I called her that afternoon and said I would be right down to get it. As I pulled into the driveway, she dropped the lit match onto the gasoline-soaked pile of my entire life's collection of artwork. Never did another piece of artwork again. Frick that. See? Start again. She wins if you won't. Get some fricking art done. Right after high school, there was a girl who liked me, but the feeling was not mutual. She decided to cope with her rejection using the means at her disposal. She was an assistant manager at a video rental chain. I had stopped renting there, but my rental account was still open. She started checking out movies under my name that I never actually borrowed. They would never get returned, so massive late fees plus replacements fees showed up on my account. She also changed my mailing address in their system so that I would never receive the notices in the mail. It wasn't until close to a year later that I started getting the phone calls from debt collection agencies. It took years to get them to stop, and it negatively impacted my credit because I had no proof that the debts weren't valid, whereas the video chain had computer records of the rentals. Not to me, but my mother-in-law. She was married for a couple months and got pregnant. Her husband told her to get an abortion. Being in a small town, she had to drive several hours to the nearest clinic. She waits outside for an hour or two and can't go through with it. So she calls him to tell him she can't do it. He hangs up on her. After a long drive home, she comes home to an empty home. Everything including the ice trays in the fridge are gone. Only things left are a rocking chair and some of her clothes. He took some of them. He never shows back up. Add on, she had the baby girl. She grew up. I married her. We got the chair for our kids. It is a nice chair. She took my adding machine. That thing was an antique too. I never got it back. That calculating bee. My ex wrote a poem about my dong being small. It was like 10 verses long, and it was actually very good. She sent it to all my friends, but not me. I found out 5 years later she did this. My friends showed me it. She had sent it via MSN email to everyone and I was like, dang. She owned me. Luckily though, I had sex with her sister a year prior to discovering this poem. Not to spite her or anything. Her sister just really likes me. So I guess we are even? I don't know. And anyway, it's not that small. It's okay. When my ex and I were going through a divorce, he decided to share with me that a year and a half prior, he had in fact took my dog. She was 14. Had her since she was 6 weeks old, with him to work, dropping her off in the middle of nowhere on the way. She was afraid of him, but he lured her into his truck with the words that every dog loves. Bye bye. He even left the gate open to make it look like she got out on her own. I searched for that dang dog for months. He sat back and watched me cry, put up posters, go to every animal shelter around us. I hate that sucker, not only for that reason. He also is a religious weirdo. I don't know if this will bring you any comfort at all, but I would share. We have animals dumped out here, middle of nowhere ranch, and we have taken them all in and loved them like they should be loved. Some were old, sick, and when they passed, we would bury them under a beautiful oak tree and honor them. Till all my past relationships have been sane and no one in Reddit understands what theft or destruction of property is.
Man, I sure do love great content, and I'm working on some of that over at Updoot, man. So you should go there right now. Go there. Go if you aren't subscribed to this channel, subscribe. Then go over to Doot Man. Right there. You click right there. You click right there. You better do it. So help me, you better go over there. Because you deserve something good. I put my heart and soul into this stuff, man. You don't even understand. No pressure.